Hey guys, so I thought it might be helpful if I led you through the way that I would go about a quick research journey, sort of based on some of the research questions that you guys are coming up with, which are great. So I'm going to start here. This is our list of research questions on Ed Blogs, and this is Sarah Tabor's question. One of them had to do with television and Bowen Yang, who is the first Chinese American actor to be casted on Saturday Night Live. And so I've been following Bowen Yang. I think he's pretty hilarious. And so I was just interested in looking at the article itself, which she linked in here. And on it, as I watch this, by the way, if y'all get a chance to watch it, please do. It's hilarious. Both the host Sam Sanders here is funny, and then of course Bowen Yang is hilarious. But as I was watching this and kind of going through the transcript, what I noticed is that for Bowen Yang in particular, what he wants to push past is that the fact that he is an Chinese American on SNL is like some novel and interesting thing. He says he wants it to be normal, and that was let's see, it's kind of down here. I mean, he talks about some of the pressure too that he feels like he's under, especially being Chinese American and not wanting to fall victim to just getting these stereotypical roles. But then he also admits that SNL is satire, so there is going to be some of that. But anyway, I can't find it right this second, but he talks about how he hopes that at some point it will just be normal to see a queer Asian person on screen, that this won't be something that's just like novel and so interesting. And he says that he feels like his only duty on SNL is to make it easier for the next Asian American who gets hired on the show. So that got me thinking about Sarah's original research question when she's like, why did it take so long, right? And what I think we need to tease out of that research question is not just looking at Chinese American actors on SNL, but looking at inclusion in entertainment media as a whole, right? So if you start doing some digging, these were some things that I came up with. First, I just sort of started to search things like diversity in SNL. And SNL has had a problem with diversity in the past. This is an article, it's a podcast from 2014 about African Americans in SNL and, that lack of racial diversity in the past and how it's being handled differently now, and how SNL has been experiencing a lot of public pressure to diversify, but also why it's important to do so. So that also got me into, as I was going through this piece, I saw there was this letter to Lauren Michaels, who directs SNL, and I could link to it, right? So this is from, let's see, the National Hispanic Foundation for the Arts, and it is specifically about a lack of Latino representation in SNL's cast as well. So this again is from 2014, but it has a lot to say too about the dangers of a lack of diversity. So that it took me to a couple places. I did some Google searching. I did some Google Scholar searching. I even went to one search and at the university libraries. Mostly I was looking at things like diversity and entertainment media and these sorts of kind of search terms. I'm, in the rabbit hole of research, and I ended up finding this inclusion or invisibility comprehensive Annenberg report on diversity in entertainment. And this was really interesting. So this comes from USC, which is University of Southern California at Annenberg. And these are the researchers here. And when I start to break this all down and go through this source, most of this is really looking at racial diversity too, but it's also looking at gender diversity. There's a chart here that I think is really compelling too, because this is recent. So it's also looking at streaming services instead of just network television like SNL. And down here, let's see, where's this chart? Here it is. All right. So here it looks at kind of on-screen portrayals. So like the people that we see on screen as people who watch television versus the people who are behind the camera. And that's important to look at too, because if your directors, your writers and creators are not very diverse, then how are they necessarily making decisions about appropriate representation for actors who are the actors who are there? Now, we are seeing higher rates of inclusivity in the people that are behind the screen. Right. So, I'm sorry, not behind the screen, but on screen, which that in itself is great. But it's also not a lot. We're starting to see higher rates of inclusivity, particularly gender inclusivity, but we're not seeing probably enough. Now, what I found interesting with some of our streaming services, we're actually seeing higher rates of inclusivity than we are in some of our like traditional networks. So things like NBC, Fox, CBS, etc. So all of this stuff is really cool, and but it has me thinking again. Remember, research is getting you thinking. Why ultimately does this matter? And so I started to do some just searching, especially news source searching, on why it's important to see yourself in entertainment media, right? So why is it important for television to be more diverse? And that brought me to this Vice piece, which is looking at Black Panther as sort of this, landmark film that really helps to push some of that inclusivity and diversity. But of course, it also makes the point that we still have an incredibly long way to go, right? But down here, as I'm reading through this piece, I'm looking at things like Carlos Cortez, historian. He wrote the book The Children Are Watching, How the Media Teach About Diversity. It has a link to his article about what the impacts are. And then here it says there's a 2011 study specifically about how Black males are portrayed in media, and sort of the negative ways in which they're portrayed and how that ends up having an impact on viewers. And not just African American viewers, but also all viewers who are given sort of a stereotypical or dehumanizing view of Black men and boys when they watch entertainment media, and how that might affect us in a number of ways, including how we respond to African American men and boys in lots of different aspects of life. So what I'm saying here is that what started as Sarah's great question that she posted on the blog space about the first Chinese American actor has led me all over the place. Now, I may not end up using all of these sources, but ultimately I'm like, I want to know about representation in entertainment media. I want to know why that's important. Why is it groundbreaking that SNL, hire a Chinese American for the first time? What is it about diversity in entertainment media that matters to people? And y'all, you know how we do a lot of social emotional work in this class. So ultimately, what is the impact of these things? So how does seeing a lack of diversity in our entertainment media, how does that affect us? How does it affect all of us, regardless of our, racial makeup or, gender makeup or whatever? So anyway, I hope this was helpful. And by the end of this, I may completely let go of Bowen Yang and SNL, right? That may not even register. I might want to look more specifically at gender representation and really pull from this Annenberg study about the importance of gender representation and how, not having enough gender diversity in our programming can have a huge effect on the way that we have these, a very polarized gender constructs and gender roles in society. But it all started with this Bo and Yang piece. So that's what I want y'all doing. Y'all, I want you digging in this weekend, thinking about this research question and then letting it take you kind of down the rabbit hole of research. And even if that means that what you end up writing about is a lot different from sort of the inspiration source or the thing that got you interested to begin with. All right, I hope this helps. Y'all have a great weekend.